As the season draws closer, despite mass hysteria, the grid is starting to fill up. This is the February update.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. We have had plenty of news come through this month, and it is about time because we are getting closer to the start of the British Touring Car season. We're going to bring you all the updates from February, as you may have already heard. There's plenty to go through, and we've already covered a little bit of it in a previous podcast. So there was an emergency update for the big news that there was this month. So if you haven't already gone and seen that, pause this, go back, watch that, and then come back to us.
Yeah, because we'll only be covering that by headline this pod, because there's no point repeating what we've already said. First of all, how are you? I noticed you didn't bother asking how we are and welcome back or anything of that sort of stuff, but good to be here. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Catching up with all the news that there has been, and we're gradually getting prepared for the new season now, aren't we?
Indeed, yes. Media Day will be here before we know it, and we are really only 2 months away now from the start of the British Touring Car season.
Yeah, it's
which is going to be terrible, by the way, because that's what everyone's saying. It's going to be awful, dreadful, the worst yet.
We'll see. But we're going to hype it up a little bit, and we're going to go through some of the news stories that we have seen this month. So first of all, we're going to go in chronological order, start at the start of the month and go through it. So the first news announced this month was Pearson would be at Toyota. Obviously, his deal was cut short towards the end of last season with Hyundai. There were rumours of discontent behind the scenes and financial troubles, but Toyota have been the ones to pick him up in the off-season, and he will be going ahead with what looks like the main side of that team this season.
Yeah, there's definitely a good driver in there. He's a race winner. You don't take a race win in the British Touring Cars unless you are of a decent pedigree. Yep. But I think it's fair to say that everything really did fall apart for him last season after that race win. It was a real shame. We really thought that would be the key where he could kick on and sort of move forward. Of course, make him ineligible for the Jack Sears this year, which is a bit of a shame because had he competed last year, I'm not sure he'd have beaten double to the... But it would certainly have been good to see that go down to the wire.
He struggled a little bit for consistency last season, but I don't know how much of that was down to the car and some of the reliability issues that Hyundai and Accelerate were having.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned before that, realistically, he was third choice driver at the team with two Toms first. So when it comes to parts, when it comes to upgrades, etc., it comes to budgets, was he always getting brand new parts on the car? Was he the first to get the upgrades? Was he being, given preferential treatment compared to the other two? Probably not. And it does come a point where if you've got Tom Ingram at the front winning races, and at that part of the season, Chilton was fairly consistently at the front as well.
Yeah, he was.
Your own sponsors are going to be going, hang on a minute, these two lads are at the front. We're not expecting the same level from Halstead for obvious reasons. Why are you not pushing forward at the front as well? And I don't want to say it's a make or break season for Pearson, but time is often short in the touring cars. You've not got long to make an impression. If everything works, they've got a fast driver on paper, they've got a decent driver on paper. Though I do feel kind of sad from a sentimental point of view that obviously he came through the minis with Accelerate and that partnership's been broken so early in their career. That is a bit sad.
Yeah, although I do hope now that being with a manufacturer team like Toyota, he's going to have the backing that he needs. I don't think he's going to probably need to bring as much sponsorship as he did at Accelerate. So hopefully he doesn't have to worry with money issues towards the end of this season going forward, and that he can focus solely on the racing going forward, and hopefully we'll see the best of him.
Absolutely. One driver who we don't think is going to be at Toyota is Cook. Now, he has been talking a lot for someone who's not had any plans formally announced as it stands on the 28th of February. Yeah. Guarantee March the 1st is when that news comes out after we've finished this podcast. But he's been talking that he feels he's got a lighter car this season. He feels he's got a car he's more comfortable with, a car that appears to be front-wheel drive, and a car that I believe he said it could be challenging for the championship. All of which points towards a return to One Motorsport.
Yeah, it really does. Obviously, we knew that One Motorsport were going to have TBL licenses going forward in this season. They were late to come to the game, as we'll get to with their announcement. And I kind of gathered that both announcements would come together by what Cook said in his Autosport interview, and that he wanted everything to be announced together. So I'm a little bit put off by the fact that it didn't get announced at the same time, but I don't see many other places for him.
There is no other place, is there? Because as we're going to get to in a minute with some of the other teams that have filled spots and other teams that are in trouble, if Cook is back on the grid, unless it was going to be at that team before all trouble started. I don't believe that for a minute. Then it's very difficult to see who else he would be. But yeah, so Cookies, it would appear back, although no firm announcement yet. We'll have to keep an eye out for that. A team that is in trouble, as I mentioned there, we have kind of covered it a little bit on the other podcast, but probably the least in depth of the three. So we'll just quickly go over the basics here. PMR have lost their title sponsor, Evan Halshaw. I think Pendragon, who is the owner of Evans Halshaw, is in some financial trouble, potentially, and therefore they've withdrawn their sponsorship or pulled out early of what was a long-standing deal. This is always difficult if you lose your title sponsor.
Yeah.
Or your share title sponsor, obviously, with PowerMax, yeah.
Current financial climate, I assume both parties have come to that agreement, and even though there was a 5-year deal in place, only 3 years have been served of it, and that then makes it really difficult, especially at this time in the off-season, going forward for PMR, to then pick up another crucial sponsor, because it is one of their biggest sponsors, and it's going to be a biggest input of money into that team. There's real question marks over whether the team will actually be on the grid for 2025.
Yeah, it's come very late in the day to get a big title sponsor together, or even lots of little ones. It's a very big blow to PMR. Could Cook have been going there potentially? Although from what he was saying, I don't see it personally.
And also the fact that obviously Dobble had been putting out on social media that he'd been struggling to get sponsorship together to get a drive. We assumed that this would be with PMR. And it could still well be, but I think a lot more money has now got to go in, especially with the other news that Aaron Taylor-Smith has moved on from the team and gone to be that main driver at Toyota alongside Pearson. Yeah,
and we covered that in quite good depth in the other pod, so we won't go over it here. Aaron Taylor-Smith's good news was slightly overshadowed by the selfishness of Colin Turkington.
How to ruin Valentine's Day, wasn't it?
Yeah, and how to have to steal the limelight from Aaron Taylor-Smith. But Colin Turkington did announce on the Valentine's Day that he would not be returning to the series this year and potentially ever again. Again, that really was the whole antithesis for having the emergency pod. So we're not going to really discuss any of that here, apart from to confirm Colin Turking gone. And if you want more on that, listen to the emergency pod that we did. It's covered in there.
We are also going to do a driver profile on him before the season starts. Take a look back at his career, what he's achieved, what he's done for the sport, some of his highs and some of his lows. So keep an eye out for that.
Yep. With just on the Aaron Taylor-Smith thing as well, with that announcement at Toyota, came the news that they are running 4 cars. Again, I think we touched on that on the other pod as well. So, but that's something to keep an eye out on, because there's been a lot of discussion that maybe they'll be going back to a 2-car team. And as it stands from their press release, it'll be a 4-car team.
Yes, and a slight offshoot of that one, we originally thought that possibly 2 of those cars might be used to create another team. Vortex had been mentioned, and there was a little bit of news regarding that.
Well remembered. I've not got it on my list. Well done. Well done.
And Sumpton came out and said that he would have been one of the drivers going forward this year with Vortex. However, they haven't been able to get a deal together to put cars on the grid for 2025. But they are working hard behind the scenes to get the cars together on the grid for 2026. And it does still look like they will be running Cupras.
Although where the licenses were coming from to race,
no idea.
Absolutely no idea. But we don't need to worry about that, because as you rightly say, he didn't name the second driver, but it's interesting that obviously Vortex have made a lot of noise on their own page about how they're going to be this force to be reckoned with in the touring cars this year. It's always disappointing when a new team can't get a deal over the line, particularly when you look at another new team from last year, Restart Racing, which are actually in a really strong position, I think, going into this season.
And Unlimited.
Yes.
So we believe that the Cupras for Vortex will come from obviously Sumpton being in one last season at Restart, and that other Restart Racing car. Now they've moved on to having Hyundais.
Yeah, and of course at Restart they have also finished their driver lineup. Ever popular Dan Lloyd is back in the series. He'll be racing a car which he took 2-3 wins in. At least 2, if not 3 wins.
Couple.
Yeah, if not 3 wins in racing that Hyundai alongside Chris Smiley. It's great to have Lloyd back. Everyone works really hard to get on the grid, but potentially because he does a YouTube, it's more obvious how hard he does work.
It's very evident how hard he works, and he's even gone to the lengths of setting up his own little business to try and generate that more income that he needed to get on the grid this year, which he has managed to do. He was obviously putting out feelers for more sponsors earlier in the off season, and it's all come to light now, and he's managed to get the deal over the line.
I think it's actually a really exciting dawn.
I think it's an exciting lineup as well.
I really do.
Especially how they're moving forward with the Hyundais, which they both know.
Exactly. They both know the car. They've both had success in touring cars. They're both good, quality, decent drivers. I'm not suggesting one of them is going to win the title, obviously, but actually I think there's no reason to think they couldn't sneak a podium here or there. There's no reason to think they couldn't even sneak an outright win on reverse grids, etc. I don't think they'll necessarily be up there for pace from the off, albeit they're going to know the cars. There's going to be a little bit of development to do on them. But no, I think it's a really exciting lineup. And actually, it's really good to see a team come into the series, be able to stay more than one season, and then grow in the way that they have, which is to be able to invest outwards and bring in good talent, bring in a good car. I'm interested to see what it holds.
Well, you talk of bringing in talent and a driver that is coming to the grid for this season.
So pleased with this because spending half an hour trying to find his wretched name on the emergency podcast and calling I thought it would be him or could be him.
Yeah,
I was right.
We did have no idea when the little snippet video came out from WSR who it would be. The announcement to replace, we assume, that Turkington spot. But it will be Charles Rainford, who is well known for going through the Porsche Carrera Cup GB. It's a mouthful, that one. And he's moved through from amateur to Pro-Am. Last season, he was in the Pro class and he was doing well. He was progressing. And he's a driver that has shown a lot of promise and really good development, which is why I think BMW have picked him up at this stage.
Yeah, and if you are only got a casual interest in the Porsches, he had the King Dick sponsorship on his car. And then last year it was the blue and green. Was it coin something? Something watery, I think it was.
Yeah.
That's great for their sponsor. I've remembered exactly what it's for. That's why they get into this game, so you can remember them. But exciting move. He's a driver that we have both sort of taken an interest in and sort of kept an eye on in the Porsche Carrera Cup GB first time.
Well done.
Thank you. As someone that's quick, seems to be a really good racer as well at wheel to wheel. Obviously, it's a different sport or different setup in touring cars, but rear-wheel drive car is going into, which we're used to.
Really going to help him settle in, I think.
And we understand he'll be Moffat's teammate effectively. So BMW, as I believe it stands, subject to anything else, is that DeLyon is racing on his own with WSR. Hill is racing on his own with MB Laser Tools, so no teammate or outright teammate for Hill. And then we have Moffat and Rainford in the LKQ with whatever it is, Euro car parts, BMW. What I will say is that on paper it's interesting. It's a lot to go wrong for WSR, and you think that's two rookies effectively.
It's a really young lineup when you look at it, and you look at those names and you go, right, Moffat's the one there with the most experience in time in the sport.
Yeah,
Moffat has been in the sport a hell of a lot longer.
Yeah, okay.
He's done more races. Yes, Hill is the quickest of those four.
Hill is the best of the four.
Yes, but there's not much experience from those other two, and I think it's a big jump for BMW to make at this stage.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I thought they might bring in one driver like they did with Leon. We were all expecting Turkington to be that almost
so are they.
mentor figure.
Yeah,
and then he's almost mic drop. I'm out.
Yeah, and it's, as I say, that I'm really pleased on the one hand because I've been doing a lot of research for another video we're working on at the moment, and it's seeing pathways back then to what we've got now. It's really cool to see these pathways that actually do exist, perhaps not in the same format they used to, but to see drivers be able to come through. But for a team like WSR, who are used to being at the top, if you go past their truck, have got so many stickers about what they've won, etc. This is going to be a real tough season for them. Hill aside, I think Hill will be fine, obviously.
It could be a season where we see them massively struggle, and there could be Hyundai faster than them, Napa faster than them. Toyota, if they've got the right car beneath them, could be almost well above them with the driver lineup.
Yeah.
It's a real risk, but it might pay off.
The only thing I would say as well is that from Hill's point of view, last year, I wouldn't say Colin won in the championship, that'd be too harsh, but Colin certainly played a big part.
A massive assist.
And we've seen with Tom Ingram, the danger of not having a teammate that is competitive to help you in the sharp end of the season. Now, I think that DeLyon, Moffat and Rainford will be fine. They'll score points, they'll take podiums, but are they going to be there consistently? Because Tom Chilton's fine, he scores points, he takes a win here and there, he scores podiums here and there.
I think you're about to say what I'm thinking, go on.
But will he be there when it matters? And I'm not sure it will.
Also, are they going to take points off of Sutton, Camish,
Ingram,
Morgan, Ingram, all those other drivers that are in those other teams that you go, right, I need them to be bumped a little.
Yeah.
I don't think those drivers are going to be there for Hill this season like he's had in last year.
Although I suppose WSR might be thinking, look, we take a slight hit this year and we nurture the talent moving forward for next year. Regs don't change next year. Obviously, there's no engine development allowed across the two series, so we stabilise this year. We accept we might not win the manufacturers or the teams, and Hill might have it slightly tougher in the. I actually don't think you'll have much competition from Napa personally, but I'll get to that in a moment. They might have to accept a consolidation season building for next, but it's certainly interesting. And that sounds like we're quite down on it. We're not. It's just that there's a lot of change at one of the biggest teams. This would be
where we haven't seen a lot of change before as well.
Yeah, this is akin really to Max Verstappen leaving Red Bull and then promoting some driver from or Mercedes in a way, replacing Hamilton with a chap whose name escapes me, Antonelli. They're big shoes to fill. There's a lot that can go wrong, and the person that's left in that team, George Russell, decent, but is he going to be leadership material? And that question's having on Hill.
Yep, definitely. Next piece of news that came up, and this is one that I've already alluded to. Thank you. Is One Motorsport. They have clarified their position, and they will be back with 2 Honda Civics, which we know that they were meant to be running last season, but pulled out fairly late on as well.
Steve Dudman still involved in the setup, which is key. Obviously, that his name can be traced back through the Btcc Northern Racing days, where arguably that team was the most successful. With the pinky Civic.
No drivers announced yet, which I thought if it is Cook, you'd think it would come at the same time as that. But I do think the 2 drivers for that team will be announced together as a package. I just hope it doesn't come like a couple of days before media day. I
think that there's a possible or reason for the delay if the second driver, so I think it is, who is still potentially trying to get sponsorship together. Now there's lots of
same in my mind.
Yeah, and that might have delayed that announcement, but we'll see on that score.
I think there will be 2 drivers in there that have been with that team before.
I agree with you. Which unfortunately suggests to me that we won't be seeing Bobby Thompson on the grid this year, which is a real shame. I don't think we'll see him on the touring car grid again if he doesn't make it this year, personally. With the way that, it's a real shame. But anyway.
He may well have other opportunities. I think I've seen him doing some GT testing in the off-season, so he might pop up somewhere else.
And then finally, Napa have completed their stable. Roe Bottom announced on a 2-year deal, which is great news for him. Good character off the track, and someone that is trying to do a bit more work to make the sport grow.
Are you surprised that it's a 2-year deal he's been given?
No, because Cataclean. Because I think Cataclean is such a sponsor that they all want to secure their space in the sport for more than necessarily 1 year at a time. Also, it doesn't matter how long the deal is, because we know that these deals don't always last. So we've seen that with wasn't Ash Hands given a 2-year deal at PMR, never to be seen again? Wasn't Jack Constable supposed to be coming through, never to be seen again? The deal, like in football, like in most sports, the contract is only worth what it's worth.
The paper it's written on.
At the time, £40 million plus one from Wenger for Suarez back in the day, So interesting, but I'm not surprised. Roe Bottom fits into that team quite well. I think he understands that where
he knows his position.
Exactly. He wants to compete, and he says he wants to win the championship, and that's fine. But I think he also knows that if he's not in a championship winning position, he will do what needs to be done for the team. And again, as I say, he brings that Cataclean sponsorship, which is so important. Napa can put in a lot of money, but it's always helpful to have a little bit as well.
Yeah, and even less surprisingly is the fact that Sam Osborne has been retained for this season going forward as well.
You're not surprised? I'm slightly surprised. No. I'm slightly surprised, only because there's got to come a point. No, seriously.
You keep saying this about Stroll in F1.
I know, but I get
Daddy's team.
Yeah, but Osborne Senior strikes me a bit less sentimental than Stroll Senior. Stroll has made no bones about it. The reason he bought an F1 team was so he could get his son racing. He's literally, I think he's literally said that, hasn't he? Whereas I don't get that vibe with Osborne Senior. You say, am I floored by the news? No. However, if you'd said to me Osborne won't be racing this year, they decided that they want to, quote, strengthen or potentially bring through a rookie through their lower pros, like a Selby, for example, I'd have gone, okay, that also makes sense. Osborne has to win the Jack Sears this year for me. He has to do it.
Yeah.
I don't care that you can say, well, De Leon's in there in a BMW. He's in a rookie car. No. He has to win it this year for me.
Yeah, it would be amazing if he doesn't.
Well, or if he doesn't win it, he's got to lose out by 1 or 2 points. It'd be a really close battle.
Yeah.
Last year he was nowhere near it.
Right.
And I know Vauxhall dominated the Independent and the Jack Sears, but he's in a car that was competing for the title.
Yep, agreed.
It's got to be winning the Jack Sears this year for me.
We'd love to know your thoughts on the news that has been announced this month.
Do you know what my reasons why Napa won't be that competitive? I've got a theory.
Okay.
I like a theory.
Can I guess your theory?
Well, you've probably seen me say it on Facebook in response to someone.
No.
Okay.
I haven't.
Okay, so if you haven't seen it, guess my theory.
My theory that I think you'll come out with is that we know Napa are going to a new car in 2026.
I can stop you there. Yeah.
And so they don't have to develop this car.
Why would they spend money developing this car and then ditching it next year?
Yeah.
And that's what I think.
I understand that.
There's no suggestion that either Hyundai or Accelerate or WSR will be swapping cars. WSR won't be swapping cars, I wouldn't have thought, unless they get a brand new manufacturer that come in and back them in the way BMW used to.
Yep.
I don't see that happening. And we know I can't see Hyundai not being run at Accelerate. I just don't see it, particularly if they're now becoming customers, having customer teams. It makes no sense to drop that. We know Napa are dropping the Ford next year.
It does make me question a little bit more now where the Fords will then be used, because we obviously alluded to the possibility of the Astra coming to the end of its life.
Yeah.
But if PMR aren't on the grid this season, are we going to be in a situation where they don't come back to the grid due to sponsorship? And therefore, we thought obviously that would be the natural progression for them to have the Ford.
Do Vortex look at it and say, well, we've got the Coopers, but actually
Coopers are probably next up to be replaced, I think.
Yeah, or they could be sold off to TCR or somewhere else. There's plenty of places the Coopers run. Yeah, but Sutton will be competitive because if you give him a horse and chariot, he'll be competitive. Yeah. But I just don't necessarily. I don't see Napa going in the off season and chucking everything at developing the car with Sutton putting in. Well, Sutton probably still do the sim stuff because he likes it. But when they dominated in the off season, they chucked everything into development. Sutton was on the sim all day, every day, and they were really working out to get the best out of that car. Dropped the ball a little bit last season, or other teams caught up with him to call it. I just don't see them putting that level of resources in when they could be developing the car ready for next year.
Yeah.
What that car will be, I don't know. Jag or Alpha is my bet.
But anything.
But yeah, I'm not saying.
I kind of hope we shall see a real shake-up with cars next season. But as you say, I think it's only going to be Napa who change.
Yeah, I don't see them dropping to the back of the grid or anything dramatic like that. No. I'm just saying I don't think. I could be wrong, but I just don't think they'll be putting the time and effort in knowing there's a new car coming. You see it in F1, don't you? Halfway through the season, some teams that aren't competing.
See it from the start of this season.
Well, yeah,
Alpine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, running the same chassis. And they all look at it and go, the regs change in a significant way next year, or we know we're getting a new car next year. We're not competing for anything this year. We'll start. There's free development, save money, save resource. We'll start working on next year's car.
Yep.
So we'll see on that. I don't know.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts and feelings on the news that has been announced. Obviously, we love to see your comments on Facebook and on our posts on Instagram as well. We try and respond to everything where we can, but we do both have fairly busy lives outside of this. We're really excited for the season getting started in April.
Are you down on it generally? I only ask because social media is a terrible place. It really is a terrible. Yes, lots of people are getting quite down about this grid being small and not a lot of quality drivers on it. I still think it'd be a really good season. I think there's a lot of things to look forward to. I do think the sport is getting harder to finance for people, but that's for everything. Things cost money.
One thing I will mention that I know it's going to put it on a little more of a downer is that there has been a delay to the TOCA Juniors.
Yeah, that is a frustration.
Which it does look like they're looking more towards 2026. Obviously, we only had 2 teams really announce that they were going to take teams into the Junior Championship this season. And I think that slow uptake on that side of things is a sign of possible budgeting issues as to how the series is going to be run.
Yeah.
Or just a really low uptake on...
I think it's a mix of the two. From what I understand, there's a mix of the two.
People are really unsure on what the car's going to offer.
Yeah. And it's a junior format. It has to be cheap. The reason the juniors worked was because it was relatively, I mean, I can pop me on the sofa and get them, but relatively cheap to do, relatively. And if it's not cheap, you're not going to get many people enter it because it's, unless you've got, Lord of Surrey's son who wants to become
You'll see more drivers doing Fiestas, doing Saxos, doing...
Well, actually, I think it's really interesting. That's the route Turkington's. The Turkington's kid's gone through his Fiesta and not straight into the Toka package. That's really interesting. And actually, you look at some of the Fiesta racing, so we've seen it. It's good.
Yeah,
it's really good.
It's
really good.
It's cheap. It's accessible.
Mm.
Yes, they don't get as big a crowds as you'd expect at a Toka event, but I think if you're putting kids in of that age, it's a better progression for them because they're not under the spotlight from day dot.
No. And also, it's potentially a slightly friendlier paddock because it's a bit more club manny racy, which tends to be a bit more, they're there for the sake of racing rather than politics and whatever kind of stuff. But yeah, it is really interesting. And I think it's, as I say, I've forgotten that Turkington's kid is in Fiesta next year. And it's interesting he's gone that route away from the Toka packages.
Yep.
Yeah, it's got to work for everybody. But as I said earlier in the week, it's not a great start.
Yeah. If there is any other news that we have missed, do let us know. And we will be back, obviously, again with another update at the end of March.
Unless something cataclysmic happens in between time, We
will have some other videos in between times. We're working on stuff behind the scenes to try and get some different content out for you. And we're going to start the build up to the new season from March onwards. So if you haven't already, go down and subscribe. Click the like button. We want to see your comments as well. And if you haven't already, get the bell on.
Yeah, and make sure you cross our socials. Facebook and Instagram are the best two places for generic sort of content. And then if you want more quizzy stuff, more funny bits and more funny, what do you want to call it? Bits and pieces, TikTok is the place to find those. We sometimes make them onto Reels, onto Facebook and Instagram, but to be honest with you, they don't get anywhere near the same traction on there as we get through the TikTok page. So if you want those sort of quizzes or those sort of short sound bitey bits, that's where to go for any sort of bite-size BTC bits.
Yep, but until we make another video, stay safe and we will see you again soon.
Bye for now. That win also makes him ineligible. There we go. That win also makes him ineligible for the Jack Sears this year, which would be a shame for him because had he competed the full season, you assured me it was going to be muted.
I thought I'd put that one there. There we go, on airplane mode.
That race winner